fellow Tamers and Digidestined, it's Mike, AKA Synaku from Overground, and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be going over my top 32 finishing ChaosGallantmon deck from the most recent Carta Magica Regional. Now, unfortunately, we weren't able to finish in that top 16 spot to secure our invite, but we did finish the event at 25th place, locking in our top 32 spot. And unfortunately, we would have clinched that top 16 had we not lost in the very final round. The last round of the day, we were at table 3, and game 1, we opened all champions, so couldn't really do much with that. And in game 2, we opened no champions, so that was very difficult to kind of get our combos going. We had to keep hard playing all these big ultimates and try to see if we could get the engine going, and our opponent just was obviously playing yellow, so they could constantly deal with those threats and keep us off our ability to keep progressing forward. So unfortunately, it was a really bittersweet, demoralizing end to the day, but I'm still happy that I was able to take this deck to a top finish in some capacity, just not as far as I wanted to. So I wanted to take this opportunity to kind of go over the deck really quickly, have a quick discussion about it, and then go over a quick tournament report as well. As you can see, this deck is very similar to what we built for the original ChaosGallantmon Rainbow series. And that's because, as I mentioned in those videos as well, those decks are kind of like prototypes, and we take those decks and we test them, and then we kind of adjust them as necessary based on how they play in the meta or what the meta kind of shapes out to be. And in that instance, that exact copy of the Rainbow series deck I took with me to a Gyrotron event earlier last week as well, one of his win mats that he hosts on a regular basis. And I think there was like 90-ish people there, and with that exact same list, we went X1, finishing 6th place, just missing out on the top 4 to win a mat there as well. So it's just been a week of really unfortunate placements where we keep getting the bad luck and bad tiebreakers to kind of knock us down into areas where we just can't quite place where we want to. But overall, the deck is still performing really well. I'm super happy with the result, but there are some things about the deck that I still would like to have desired, and especially after an 8-round event like the Regional, I don't know if I would actually take this deck with me again, and I'll explain why. So let's go over some of the changes that were made after testing, first of all in Gyrotron's event, but then just testing in general. So the rookie lineup originally had 13 rookies, and I thought that that was going to be enough because card space was very, very tight, and there was a lot of things that I wanted to squeeze in. But after losing the games that I did lose because I did not see a rookie for nearly as long, I decided to up the count to 14. Now, 13 to 14, statistically speaking, isn't really that much of an increase, but honestly, you feel it just by drawing the cards in general. It just puts more in circulation. So by doing so, we've altered the rookie count slightly. We've reduced the Candlemon count a little bit. We've increased Ghazi to 2 because that actually came up to be a super optimal against the yellow matchup, and we added 2 copies of Labramon. And Labramon here was kind of a consistency piece because if we did open Labramon and we didn't want to evolve it, if we had another rookie to evolve over it, it potentially gave us an opportunity to cycle through 2 cards if we didn't have another evolution, just to kind of get us deeper into our deck and deeper into our combo pieces. Now, there is an argument to play the 1.0 Gabumon with the on deletion inheritable draw 2, discard 1, but the issue I find with that, and that's kind of the issue I'm going to talk about to the greater deck as a whole, is that your stacks are so very important, so you never really want to give any resources up just to increase your consistency. Now, I guess the one good thing about the Agumon is that if the stack that you've kind of invested all your resources in dies, you get to draw more cards to kind of play catch-up and get back into the game. And while I do agree with that, I did want my cards to be as proactive as possible and not necessarily as reactive as possible, which is why I decided on the Labramon instead. At the end of the day, was it that good of an inclusion? Not really. I think I want to test the Gabumon out further because I think that'll probably get me further ahead in terms of situations like I just mentioned, where I might have to fall behind and play catch-up, and I might need a couple more cards in my hand just to get to that point. But other than that, 14 rookies, perfect number. I don't think I'd play any more or any less. Unfortunately, just due to RNG and the nature of the game in general, there are situations where you're still potentially going to break anyway at 14, but we just kind of take those where we can. The champion lineup here has not changed at all. It's still exactly the same. We have the 4-blocker Devi, 3 1-cost evolution Meramon, 2 of the retaliation Devimon, and 2 extra blockers in the form of Vilemon. The Devimon here came up super clutch because it was basically it basically just read kill Lord Nightmon. That's all this card ever did. All we played, I guess we'll talk about the tournament report real quick before moving on to the rest of the deck list. Out of 8 rounds, I played 6 Lord Nightmon decks, I had 1 no-show, and I had 1 yellow Rookie Rush deck. But out of the 6 Lord Nightmons that I played, Devimon definitely helped out in some capacity, but we're going to talk about a little bit more why certain cards were included for that specific matchup, because I did find that that was the one I struggled with the most. Moving on to the ultimates, we're playing 4 copies of Black Ramon, 2 Skull Meramon, and 2 copies of Chimeramon. I believe this ultimate lineup hasn't changed either. The one thing I would have loved to do is I would have loved to have included another ultimate. Evolving into a Chimeramon always kind of felt really bad, because you always want to hard play your Chimeras to get full value out of them, and you also want to have them engraved to discard off of other effects to bring back off the Zort, which is another reason why something like, Gabumon would be relevant as well. And another main issue I found with this deck, and another reason why I might not take this deck again, is the over-reliance on Black War Growlmon. I found that if you don't have access to the Black War Growlmon for both the ability to recur a body, but also the ability to get that double swing, you're not getting a lot of value out of your cards, and the other effects that the cards bring to the table when you kind of bring the deck around full circle, it's lackluster. Black War Growlmon adds so much more power to every single copy of any of your top end that without it, it just feels super subpar in comparison, and I almost never want to evolve a Mega on top of anybody else. So yeah, I feel like you need to get to Black War Growlmon ASAP, and anytime you're building a stack without it is generally a game that you're going to lose. But anytime you have a stack with Black War Growlmon, oh boy, are you in the driver's seat for sure. Because the cool thing about Black War Growlmon is that it constantly gives you another body to play off of, and especially in a deck like ChaosGallantmon, and with his Inheritable as well, you want to make sure that you have another Digimon that you can pop off to kind of progress your combos. And in a field where we're surrounded by Lord Nightmons, things like Starmon, Nightmon, / Angemon, they're constantly going to keep your front end at bay, and they're constantly going to be taking away your threats before you even get a chance to interact with them proper. So you're always kind of building in your stack and playing chicken from them there, to the point where when you bring up, and again, if you have the Black War Growlmon, you can bring out the extra body and then play off of that from there, because Yellow is never going to let you keep an extra body on your front end to basically work with, or even play with in the future. Then to the Megas. Originally, the deck played 4 ChaosGallantmon, 2 copies of Anubis, and 1 copy of Digimon. And we've altered that slightly because Anubis, well, strong in the sense that it gives you an extra body to close games out with Rush. It wasn't a card that I felt gave a lot of power to the deck, and that's where I've changed the ratio a little bit slightly to accommodate Tactimon. And Tactimon, I'll admit, is a card that I slept on, wow, in the beginning of BT5, and I didn't really think it was that good. But again, when you combo it with Black War Growlmon, Tactimon becomes a house, because when attacking, you get to activate one of the following effects. You either get to gain 1 memory, the Digimon gets plus 2,000 for the turn, or you can delete up to 3 of your opponent's level 3s. And it's not once per turn, so if you attack with them multiple times, you actually get to trigger one of those effects multiple times. However, the other thing with Tactimon is that if it's the only Digimon on your field, and you declare an attack, you can actually activate all 3. And again, with something like Black War Growlmon, where you get to attack twice with them, you get to activate all 3 twice, which gives you a lot more value. That means that you can get your Tactimon up to 15,000, that can pretty much compete with any Lord Nightmon stack if your opponent has a wide board, because they've special summoned a bunch of mini dudes based on if they have him with like an Agumon in their source as well. Tactimon is also helpful against the Rookie Rush matchup, because it can delete up to 3 of your opponent's level 3 Digimons on every swing. So if they go wide, or just, put out a bunch of rookies to try to present lethal, Tactimon will always keep them in check, because you can always safely go after their security and just take out their front row without any concern. The ability to also gain memory back is really important with Tactimon, because especially on a double swing, you can gain 2 memory. That puts you in a position where you can play an additional, have an additional play without having to necessarily pass your turn. And in a format like BT5, where every single card counts, the ability to have an additional play without passing your turn, while being able to set up something else for the next turn, is also very, very important. And finally, we're rounding off our Megas again with the 1 copy of Digimon. And this was here both as an out to Lord Nightmon, because it forces the opponent to have 2 sources of removal, but also as an out to the security control matchup, which unfortunately never actually went up again. So I didn't actually get to see this card shine tremendously in that respect. However, in the Gyroshan tournament that we did play, we did 203 security control matchups, and Digimon put in a ton of work. Not only is the Mill 5 a way to get some of their resources taken away from them and sent directly to the trash, it's also a way, like I said, to present a body that your opponent has to burn 2 sources of removal on, and 9 times out of 10, the first source of removal will generally end their turn, and then you're just sticking another Gallantmon back on board, and that presents an opportunity to turn it into a Zwart, or, just have another big body to start swinging for the fences with. In retrospect, I think the Digimon should be another copy of Tactimon, or another copy of ChaosGallantmon, or just another Mega in general, or maybe back to Anubismon anyway, just to give us more potentials to end the game a little bit faster. The theory with Digimon was solid. In practice, it was also very solid in the matches where it actually counted, but throughout the entire regional that happened this past weekend, Digimon never came up. So I don't really know if it's worth keeping it in the main deck moving forward, but in the meantime, I do like the idea of it. But yeah, so that's one of the changes I think I'd make moving forward as well. Moving on to our level 7s, we're playing 3 copies of Original Zwart and 1 copy of Zwart Defeat. In the original lineup, we were playing a 3-2 split. And the reason I cut Defeat down to 1 was because I just kept drawing it so much. The original theory with Defeat was that it gave me a good security check, because Purple, this version of Purple specifically, does not have very good security checks. You're not playing something like Jack Ray to potentially end your opponent's turn. You're not playing something like Trump Sword to kind of prevent further attacks, or Nailbone to keep reviving things to kind of keep you in the game. So the fact that purple had very good security checks, I wanted just to increase the ability to put pressure on my opponent and punish them for kind of attacking my security. And Zwart Defeat was kind of the answer to that, especially if we had a tie and mat on board already, because it would come out and it would automatically be a body that could swing for sec +1. And then another reason we like Zwart Defeat is because, like I mentioned earlier, you always kind of need another Digimon on your field to kind of interact with and play off of. And having a Zwart Defeat in play come in for free off of your security gives you that instant body that you can play with and get your combos rolling. And it's a body that your opponent doesn't want to interact with, because if they destroy it, they will also lose something in the interim. But I also want to include it as well because if I did have the opportunity to draw into it, I can out one of my opponent's tamers, and we're a very, 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 very tamer-heavy meta. And so getting rid of something, especially if my opponent has one memory tamer up and I can Digivolve, put them at 1 with Zwart Defeat, and then kill their tamer and then leave them choked, that's a really good, powerful play. But I wanted to reduce it to 1 because that way there was less opportunity for me to draw it. There's also less opportunity for me to put it in my security, but it was too powerful of a card to ignore. It's also very strong in combination with something like ChaosGallantmon, because I can destroy it into level 5, and then just on Zwart's Defeat's deletion effect, take out something else with it. Also something like Chimeramon, if I have a Zwart Defeat in play, I can play Chimeramon, get a 2-for-1 with it as well. Also, it's really good at just crashing into your opponent's stuff. Zwart Defeat is essentially retaliation when you're talking up something like a Lord Nightmon, because you can crash it into the Lord Nightmon and then just take it down to the grave with it as well. Moving forward, I don't know if I would still keep Zwart Defeat in the deck. I feel like regular Zwart kind of just goes towards the endgame plan a little bit better, but I did like having the extra tech option just as an ability to kind of turn off certain threats when necessary. I'm still testing around with it, and I still need to have a couple more games with it to find out if Zwart Defeat has a place in this deck, but in the meantime, I'm still not 100% sure, and I'm still on the fence. Now we're going to move on to the options and the tamers. Now, originally, our tamer and option lineup had 3 mat and tie, 1 mat, and just the 2 Mega Digimon Fusion. But I decided to cut one of the Megas to make space for 1 Hell's Gate, because originally in the Rainbow Series list we were playing 7 Megas. And Hell's Gate is basically another out to Lord Nightmon, because if their Lord Nightmon swings and they don't die off the security check, Zwart, shout out to Zwart for coming in clutch and killing all the Lord Nightmons on the first swing. You have a really hard time to come back with it against it if they can make their Lord Nightmon over like 13k, because then you're in a precarious situation where the only Digimon that can run over it is Zwart, and you don't have any hard removal other than retaliation to deal with it. This deck's really good at eliminating your opponent's options as they build up to a Mega, so once they hit that level 5 threshold. But once they get a level 6 and they get to stick that level 6 on board, it's really difficult for this deck to out in a traditional sense, because you need very specific combo pieces. And I just wanted to create an additional layer of removal with Hell's Gate, because now between, stuff with my retaliation and my Zwart Defeats, Hell's Gate is just an extra tool in my arsenal, because I can search it off of my security if my opponent hits it. It's an option card, so it's different than having to actually Digivolve into something. It's just something I can just play from my hand without having any additional setup. And it takes care of other level 7s as well in the game. So this is also included because I found that I had a really rough green matchup, and I had a really rough time outing a ChaosMon specifically. So this can just clean that up without any issue. Yeah, the tamer lineup remains exactly the same as well. We got the 3 tie mat and then 1 mat Ishida proper. And the 1 Hell's Gate actually works out well with the 1 copy of mat, because now we actually technically play 2 copies of Hell's Gate at the end of the day, because we can recycle it with our tamer effect. So yeah, let's just run through the games real quick. So first round, again, we had a no-show. Well, not really a no-show. The opponent came in and said, hey, I got stuff to do. I'm going to give you the win. Congratulations. So perfect. We take that. We take the dub. We go on to round 2. Round 2, in game 3, I'll preface this by saying that I had worked until 5:30 that morning, and then the tournament was at 10:30, so I had a bit of a power nap, and I was really, really tired going into the event. I had the game shot line in my hand, but I just did not see it, and as a result, I was too focused on, my opponent was playing yellow, and I was too focused on dealing with their Lord Nightmon that I invested all my resources into dealing with it, when I should have just gone after their security, and I had game, and I had a way to secure lethal on the following turn. It just slipped my mind. Basically, at the end of the day, we had Zwart in hand, and we just drew Mega Digimon Fusion, but I kept kind of shuffling my hand and stuff, and I kept hiding the Mega Digimon Fusion, and I was so caught up with just dealing with killing the Lord Nightmon that I forgot I could just play Mega Digimon Fusion, go over to Zwart, and just clear their security. So, it is what it is. So we took a round 2 loss, which kind of sucked taking a loss so early. It kind of contributed to why we ended up falling back so far behind at the end of the tournament too. But we ended up winning rounds 3, 4, 5, and 6 in a row. All Lord Nightmon decks, all back-to-back. The general game plan against them was keep Gazimon in play and keep them off of their level 5s. That way, they could never evolve into a Lord Nightmon, and they could never play Blinding Ray to either threaten lethal with a Bushi, or play Blinding Ray to get them out of a choke point if I constantly left them at 1 or 2, so they couldn't either progress their plays and continue on with their turn. Then round 7, we played Ricky Rush. You better believe we dug into Tactimon ASAP. Thankfully, we found him in our opening hand. And he just wrecked Ricky Rush 100%. And then round 8, we played another Lord Nightmon deck again, where we unfortunately hit with those dumb bricks, and we got knocked back to 25th place. But yeah, I hope you guys like the deck list. I hope you guys admire the changes that were made since the last iteration of the deck. If you guys have had any success with this deck as well, and you've had other techs or other ideas that you've put into it, please let me know in the comment section below. If you've also topped a tournament, if you got top 16, if you got top 32 with ChaosGallantmon, I want to hear about it. I want to see what you did differently. Help us all come together as a community and figure out what the best way to play this deck is. So I have been Mike, AKA Synaku. Once again, thanks so much for watching. If you like what we do here at the Overground, please consider liking the video and giving us a subscribe. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you guys in the next one.